we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion.
Combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado, this is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
I used to do doggy daycare. It wasn't like dog walking or anything, but I used to work at a facility, like a boarding facility for dogs. And that was one of the funnest jobs I ever had. It was like, a fresh out of high schooler type of job, but I stayed there for 3 years because I enjoyed it so much.
Oh, nice.
And it's just such a pleasure, like, to spend time with the animals. Like they just have this energy that it's like healing. Mm-hmm. As long as you like animals, because I don't understand people who don't like animals at all.
Yeah, no, I don't get that. How you just, like, I understand if you've had like a traumatic experience with an animal, but to write off like all animals at all, I don't get it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I don't, my girlfriend has a cat, which lives with us now, and I love pets, but I'm never home. So I feel like when I was living alone, it wasn't right for the animal. That's why I have a fish tank, because I feed them once a day and they just kind of hang out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fish, like, you'd think they would be easy, but
there's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, Kevin's been spending money on his fish tank, his aquarium, and you've lost some fish along the way.
Yeah, the problem was what I've learned getting in the fish business. I don't know how much you know about keeping a tank. Is there's a whole cycle that it goes through. With an ammonia cycle, it turns to nitrates. And the fish won't survive in the ammonia cycle. So it's almost better to build your aquarium and cycle goldfish through it so they can kind of, create bacteria and then introduce your fish to it.
Interesting. So you don't just go in with like the nice, expensive fish off the bat.
No, that's a big mistake.
Well, as interesting as fish is and all that, Amanda, we got you in here on DCPC. Mm-hmm. You're in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Okay. And you're from Seattle originally. Mm-hmm. Why don't you kind of fill in the listeners, what inspired you to move down to California, Los Angeles area, and what you're pursuing out there?
Yeah, so I was born like in the Redmond area of Seattle. So like my dad has, he worked for Microsoft for 20 years. And I was at Facebook, but so I grew up around, in a very tech heavy area where it was expected, like, you go to college, you go to high school, you go to college, and you're going to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. And like, those are your three options basically in that area. And for a while I was set on like, I'm going to be a veterinarian. Then I was going to be an orthodontist. Then I was going to be a lawyer. And then somewhere along the line, I discovered screenwriting. I'd always really liked movies and I really liked writing, and I'd write my little stories as a kid, but I didn't know you could make like a career out of that or anything. And it was actually watching the show 30 Rock that I found out you can write TV and you can write movies. Like, that's an actual career. The things people say on screen are written by somebody. And once I figured that out, it was like, all right, that's it. This is what I'm doing. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how hard it's going to be. This is my calling in life, pretty much. And so, unfortunately, there's really no industry for that in the Seattle area because it is so tech heavy. So my only option was basically either New York or Southern California. New York is too far away and too expensive, and I don't know anybody there. So I settled with Southern California. And I went to Chapman University and majored in screenwriting there and had the great luck of graduating in May 2020. Set up for success right off the bat. Thank you. Yeah, graduating
at least you finished like right before the shit really hit the fan.
Yeah, I moved home for 10 months thinking that, hey, I'll be out of here in a few weeks. It's no big deal. Didn't leave until January of 2021. And then finally, some girls I knew that were a year older than me in college, they had an opening in an apartment that they had, and I just kind of swooped on in there. And that's how I wound up in LA. Now I'm working as a dog walker part-time just to pay bills and that kind of thing, and student loans. But I'm currently trying out voice acting, seeing if that might lead somewhere. I'm taking lessons. And then nice. I'm still trying to get a job as a writer's assistant or a production assistant and that kind of thing, because the goal is still, I want to write movies. And that's what I want to do. That's what I do in my free time. And I'm always just watching movies or watching things about movies, watching other people talk about them or reading about them. it's a little boring to talk to me because that's all I want to talk about is just movies, specifically horror movies. And
Okay.
yeah, that's my story, basically, how I ended up here.
Well, it's a great story. And, the entertainment business, as we all know, is pretty saturated, especially
Mhm.
out there in LA. What does some of that look like with, when you present a script or an idea to a director, or, what's that process look like, going from here it is, here's the finished product, to getting this thing in motion?
So since I'm still pretty new here, I haven't had the opportunity to present one of my scripts yet. But with the process is kind of, some people are able to do it without an agent, like if they have contacts in the industry already, like their uncle is a studio exec or something. And so
That
there's
always
a kid
helps, right?
Yeah, there was a
When,
kid.
when
in one
you
of
know
my-
somebody.
Exactly. I unfortunately don't know anyone. That's my other problem. All my family's up north, so I don't have any family in the industry here. There was a kid in one of my classes who got the head of Blumhouse to read one of his scripts because his mom was on the board of the Sundance Film Festival with him. I'm like, that must be nice. Unfortunately, I don't have those connections. But anyway, so you start with that, and then sometimes you just go with an agent, and the agent gets you the meeting. Sometimes if you're really good or you're just really persistent, you can get yourself one of those meetings, and you just kind of go around and pitch it to anyone that will listen to you. And you just hope that someone will connect with the story that you have, or they'll think that it's a financial investment that would be good for them. Like, even if they don't like it, they think it'll make money. That's usually
Yeah.
what it is. And usually you start like really small. One thing that helps is entering your scripts in contests and getting noticed like that. And that really helps. It gets agents.
Now, is there
to
a
notice
certain
you.
length? Is there like a sweet spot and like how long you want this script to be for your initial send off?
Yeah, so the standard rule is about a minute per page. Like, that's about as long as it takes on screen. And so you don't want to go too long. Otherwise, I was a script reader for an internship I had. And most of the time, the people that are going to read the scripts first, if you do manage to get it to a studio, are going to be the interns like me. And we have so many scripts to get through. We don't have time to read a 180-page script because that's 3 hours of our day. And so you want to, usually the standard rule is about 90 minutes. If you're just starting out, you really don't want to go more than that because it's more expensive if your movie's longer than 90 minutes. And also, nobody wants to read that. Usually, if you're not able to get a story into 120 pages, your story probably has issues. Because you should be able to get a story across in 2 hours. Obviously, like the Marvel movies and stuff, that kind of thing, they'll push 3 hours, but normally that's because they're, connecting 20 different movies into one movie. And so there's a reason behind it. And they have such an invested audience, people will put up with a 3-hour movie. But yeah, usually 90 pages, maybe 120 if you're really good. But yeah, usually the shorter the better. There's a blog that I read that this one script reader writes, and he talks about how, if he gets a 75-page script on his desk, he's like, hell yeah, I'm reading this right now.
Okay.
Yeah, the shorter the better, honestly.
So maybe I'm just kind of brainstorming here. Like, instead of like trying to do like a whole movie, like you present like the pilot episode. And I'm kind of curious too, because on back of books, how they kind of describe what the book is about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that with scripts at all, where it's kind of like a quick synopsis, so they can like read through it? Oh, okay, yeah, this seems interesting, and then actually get into the meat? Or because I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, so it kind of varies. Sometimes you'll get hired by a studio to write what we call a treatment, which is basically just like a couple-page synopsis of the script. You go through like the important plot beats, and that's about it. And so sometimes you'll pitch just your treatment. Sometimes the studio will have you just write a treatment, and then someone else will write the script. There's so many different ways to do it, but we have treatments. Then we also have beat sheets, which are less common. They're really just good for when you're writing a script. Just like when you're writing a script, it's a good kind of blueprint to go through for yourself. And that's where you go through like what every scene is going to be. But yeah, so sometimes you write treatments. You don't normally include a treatment with your script. Your script's usually supposed to sit on its own.
Interesting.
And so if I'm looking at a script, because I've never looked at one, is it like, does each page kind of represent what's happening? Like, how detailed is it? Are we going into what the characters are saying, what's happening around them? How detailed is it?
So you've never done theater or anything like that in high school?
I took drama when I was
read a
like
script?
maybe in 3rd or 4th grade, but that's That's old school stuff. This is legit.
Interesting. See, I'm learning new stuff here. Sorry, Amanda.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it kind of varies. Usually it depends. There's a lot of different opinions on what you should do and what you shouldn't do in a script. And obviously a lot of the rules don't matter. There's debates on what kind of punctuation you should include. If your line should have exclamation points at the end, or that's giving an actor too much direction. So it should just be a period at the end, even if they're exclaiming something. So there's a lot of different opinions on it. I personally don't like to get too detailed. Like I usually will just talk about like maybe what the character's wearing and like what the atmosphere is. Like it's a really loud cafe, but I won't be like, oh, to this side of the room, somebody's doing this and somebody's doing this in the background. Usually don't want to do that because you're a director. When they read your script, they're going to want to be able to put their own spin on things. And if you've got everything, into the most tiny detail, if you've got everything laid out, they're not going to like that. So be like, oh man, this guy's like a control freak with his script, and he's not going to be good to work with. If you're like a Tarantino type and you can direct your own stuff, you can go as detailed as you want because you're the only one that's going to be doing it. But normally, you want to, obviously with action scenes, it's different because you got to describe it like kind of beat for beat what's happening there. But I don't write a lot of action scenes for that reason because it's a little intimidating. And so, yeah, it varies. That is one thing with screenwriting. There's really no set rules for anything. You just kind of, even some people, like there's a set font that we're supposed to use, but now some people aren't even using that font for their scripts.
After 2020, all the rules changed. We can keep some of the consistencies we used to have, but it's a good time to kind of break the mold and try to make some new norms, I guess, right?
Yeah, there's especially now with so many different avenues for producing your work. Like it's a lot easier now to produce an independent work. That's one thing my professors always push on us is that we don't need $1 million to get a movie made. We don't need a $10,000 camera to make something because our phones have better cameras than they had 20 years ago on a really expensive film camera. And obviously the quality might not be as good for the production quality when you have such a minimal budget. But there's so many different ways you can get around the studio system in order to get your art produced. And there's so many avenues to get it out in the world. You put it on YouTube, you put it on Vimeo. And that's how a lot of directors that are, especially in the horror world, a lot of directors and writers that are getting their work made now started out just doing short films with their friends and they put them on YouTube and they went viral. And so, luckily, because there's so much more competition now than there used to be for getting your work made, you can kind of break those rules if you want to, because and I think as more young people kind of move into the industry and become the studio heads, and less of the really old stoogey guys that have been there since the 70s start to retire, there will be more changes and more kind of risk taken with screenwriting as a format.
That's good though. I feel like the industry is constantly needing some innovation, right? Some sort of new trend or whatever, a different style. There's a lot of room for creative freedom with it, and I like that. We had an actor on, Justin Grabber, earlier this year, and he kind of does what you were saying, short films. A couple of them got picked up, a couple of them got moved to Amazon, and it's the name of the game is ground and pound. Just go out there and put out your content and just get it in front of as many eyes and ears as you can.
Yes. And so one thing that, like what you mentioned with Amazon, one thing that, I don't mean to say like disrupted the industry, like I'm on MSNBC or CNBC or anything, but the streaming industry has completely flipped just how things are made. It used to be you'd have, Paramount, Universal, Disney, Warner Brothers. Like if your script didn't sell to one of those, you might get lucky and you can make it on your own. 10 people might see it at a video store someday, and then that's the end of your career. But with streaming, they even if you make it independently on your own, they'll pick it up and it winds up on Netflix and 1 million people get to see it. And then that really helps with getting your next projects made. And so I think there's a lot of problems with, like right now, there's too many streaming services. And so I think there's an issue with too much competition at the moment, but I think that'll phase out. There's talk that Paramount Plus is going to get sold to somebody. I don't see Apple TV Plus lasting very long. That's just me. I don't know a single person that uses it. people that watch Ted Lasso, they all watch it like maybe not the most illegal forms. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Apple TV. My girlfriend has Apple products, so we got a subscription to it.
Mhm.
And I did watch the morning show with Jennifer Aniston. Fantastic. Outside of that, I really don't have a reason to carry it, but I do. I get sucked into all these stream services, HBO Max, Hulu,
Yep.
you name it, because there's always a program I want to watch, so I got to get the whole service.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, my family was kind of teetering on Disney Plus, and then we're like, well, we got to watch The Mandalorian, it's the new Star Wars thing, and now we've
So
had
good.
it. I love that show.
Well, and the Bad Batch and like all the Clone
Yeah.
Wars animated series are so good. Like anybody who thinks that those are like a child's program obviously hasn't watched it.
Oh yeah, no, my brother, his favorite show of all time is the Clone Wars show that they did, and he's 22 years old, and he's like, it's just amazing. It's the best product that Star Wars has ever put out, and I'm really excited for the new Book of Boba Fett show. Like that'll be really
That was
fun.
good.
I think they're making a good decision focusing on Star Wars TV shows instead of movies right now.
I mean, episode 7 through 9.
Mhm.
Like I honestly didn't even watch episode 9 when I watched
Oh.
every Star Wars movie in the theaters, and I did not go and see that because you could just tell. And then I waited like a year and a half, and then I finally watched it, and I was more disappointed than I thought I would be. So it's
Mhm.
like they took this, supposed to be the conclusion of this epic saga, and there was no direction. I mean, they straight up said that they had no idea what they were doing with it. So I do agree that they're doing a better job with the shows. I'm excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Ahsoka. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of cool stuff, but the fact remains that there is a ton of these streaming services out there.
It's incredible. I mean, everybody has one now. Every major network has some sort of plus at the end of their name, and they're going to charge you from $4.99 to $9.99 a month. And it's so. Do you think that is just like a transition point in the entertainment business, or do you think it's here to stay? I mean, because it's really taken on Xfinity and DirecTV and all these competitors. It really put a hitting on cable TV.
Oh, for sure. And like most of my friends don't have cable. We just have the streaming services that we use. And I think the problem was that because there's too many, it's basically just become cable TV again. Like you just pay for the channels you want. It's not like, 10 years ago where you just had Netflix, maybe you had Hulu, and that was it. Like my family and I tallied up how much, because I'm on my family's plans for everything. For our streaming services, like how much we're spending on streaming services, and it's like half of what we spend on just our cable bill that we still have. And it's like we need to, and most of these we don't use. Well, maybe we use them once a year to watch like the new Star Trek show, and then we don't come back to it until the next season, and you just forget about it, which is what they planned for you to do anyways. I could definitely see a lot of them. I think Disney Plus, Netflix, and Disney owns Hulu. And then maybe Amazon Prime. Those are like the three big ones, I think. And then I think that some of the smaller ones like Paramount Plus, the Peacock, which I know has lost Universal somewhere around like $2 billion.
Wow.
Which just again, I don't know a single person that uses the Peacock. And it's such a terrible name too. It's just not good. And so I think a lot of those smaller ones might combine with other studios, other streaming services. Like Hulu and Disney Plus are kind of one and the same now because Disney owns like an 80% share in Hulu, something like that. And I could see like maybe Universal and Paramount combine and they do just one thing together. I think there's too many. People are getting confused, and there's also niche streaming services as well. Like I subscribe to Shudder, which is a just horror streaming service, and it's great. But there's so many. There's just too many out there. It's too confusing, especially for older people. Like I tried to show my Nana how to use her little Roku box that we got her, and she's just like, I haven't even heard of half of these. Like I know, I showed her how to use Disney Plus. She's like, that's all I want. I just want to watch the Disney movies, and that's it.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten a little convoluted, and something like Paramount Plus, which I did subscribe to for about 3 hours because I was on like a free trial period, and I immediately exited. And I'll tell you why. My favorite show on TV right now is Yellowstone. Kevin Costner, such an epic show, right? And I'm like, oh, cool. Paramount Plus. It's going to have all the episodes. I'll watch them anytime I want. It's not on Paramount Plus. How does that make any sense? It's Paramount's #1 show.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there is.
They don't know what they're doing.
Now, a problem with a lot of these is that so many of these studios made streaming deals before they even thought that they were going to have their own streaming service. So Harry Potter is one of Warner Brothers' biggest properties of all time. And it was on HBO Max for about a month. And then it went to the Peacock for over a year because that was just a deal that they had made like 10 years ago. Something like that. And so a lot of stuff that you want to watch just isn't on there. I know there's still a lot of Disney movies that aren't on there yet. And a lot of cartoons I watched when I was a kid that aren't on there. You think they would be, but for some reason they're just not up. And I think that's another problem is that products that should be on these streaming services just are on different ones. And so it gets even more confusing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I was similar to Paramount. I was on I don't know if you guys remember Quibi.
It sounds familiar.
It was
It sounds like a no, I'm thinking Quibbage.
That's like a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that. It sounds like that.
Yeah, so Quibi was a huge failure. It was a thing where it was just going to be 6-minute episodes of TV shows, and they called it a quick bite. And so that's where Quibi comes from. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, who used to run DreamWorks, did it, and then he ran it with the former head of HP. And so they did it together, and they poured over $1 billion into programming for it. And they got huge names attached to it, like Chrissy Teigen was going to have her own show. They got Christoph Waltz on a show. They were going to do a new Fugitive TV show that was just Quibi. There's a whole bunch more. I just can't remember. Sam Raimi was, coming out of pseudo retirement to do a new show for them. Guillermo del Toro was going to do a show. Spielberg was going to do a show. And within like 3-4 months, they shut down.
That was it. They made it 4
That
months.
was it. Yeah, it was less.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
it's
just
expensive. You have to like own the rights. You have to have the, bandwidth, the user interface, the UX and all that stuff. And it's not easy to make an app that is easy to use and easy on your eyes. Like a lot of work goes into all that.
Yeah,
So
they rushed it out, and for one thing that they blamed it on was because it launched during the pandemic. They're like, oh, well, people aren't watching short form TV right now. And it's like, well, no, because TikTok is exploding and it's the biggest it's ever been. And I think one big problem with Quibi was that 6-minute TV episodes of TV, that's a YouTube video, and YouTube's free. So why not just go on YouTube? If I've got weird 6 minutes is a weird amount of time anyways. I'm not sure. They thought it would appeal to people that like take the train and the bus to work, but like I don't want to watch something on my commute to work. I'm just putting on my earbuds and pretending I can't hear or see anybody else around me. I don't want to be watching something. And so I think they just didn't understand their market for one thing. I'm not a business person. I don't know what I'm talking about. But
you sold me on it.
Yeah, I'm like sitting here like, yes.
I'm taking notes over here.
Yeah, it's just, there were a lot of problems. They sunk so much money into it that they need some impossible number that people would have to subscribe to in order for them to break even in like 5 years, something like that. They need like 100 million people to subscribe.
That's a lot.
Which is more than, that's like more than Netflix has, I think. And and it had a dumb name. Quibi's just a dumb name.
Yeah, it makes you think of Quibbage.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like Quidditch or it just sounds like it could be a billion different things, but not a streaming service. And so, it failed real fast. They sold off. I think Roku bought all their programming because Roku has a free streaming service.
Yeah, Roku TV. I've seen Roku originals and stuff on there now.
Yeah. So like most of those originals are just old Quibi programs that they bought. And so luckily most of that stuff didn't wind up, lost to the void or anything. Because there was some quality programming on there. A lot of the, since they were only 6 minutes long, like a whole season was only about an hour and a half. So it's basically just a movie. It's like a new Fugitive movie pretty much. And so I don't know, that's probably the biggest failure, but I'm not sure if anyone has learned from that though. Because we'll see. They're still out here
They're all
trying.
just going to keep trying it. I mean, it's just like the video game industry. Like video games used to come out in this complete package, no DLCs, like no little transactions. What do they call those again?
Microtransactions.
Yeah, that's the word.
So, it changed the gaming industry forever.
Yeah, so things are changing, and it's like in all different areas, and so they're just going to try what they can, and whatever sticks will stick around, I guess. But it's it's getting overrun. But back kind of to your passion, you mentioned horror movies.
Yes.
So I was kind of curious. I had a couple questions on that. I'll do one at a time instead of asking both at the same time. So I guess the first one would be, what are some of your favorite horror movies?
All right. So Guillermo del Toro, I mentioned him a little bit ago. He's my favorite director of all time. And so my favorite film of his is The Shape of Water, but that's not really a horror film. But like Pan's Labyrinth, The Devil's Backbone, Chronos, I love those. Hereditary.
So is Pan's Labyrinth considered a horror movie?
I would say it's more horror fantasy. Like I wouldn't say it's a horror movie like The Shining.
It's dark. I mean, it's dark. And there's
the scene with the pale man, I mean, Stephen King said it was the scariest thing he'd ever seen. When we watched that movie in one of my film classes, people were gasping and freaking out during that scene.
So it's horror worthy then.
Yeah. I'd say, I know, more horror fantasy than straight up horror, but I'd say it is. There's too many scary things in it for it not to be at least kind of horror. And so there's those. Hereditary is probably one of my favorite modern ones. I know a lot of people didn't like that movie, but for some reason it really got to me and I was very spooked. I really liked Malignant. That just came out this year on HBO Max.
So do you watch them all? Like all the horror movies, or like, because like the last one I really saw was like the Pennywise ones, It.
Oh,
and I thought the first one was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't like the second one though. Yeah, I mean it was gonna be a tough one for them to adapt anyways. It's like 1,000-page book. And it's a weird book. So I couldn't hold it against them. I try to watch everything that I can. Sometimes horror movies come out where I'm like, that just sounds boring or bad. I'm just not even going to bother with it. But for the most part, I try, I think, especially in the indie scene, there's a lot of really cool things happening right now. And so I try to watch all the ones I can, especially the ones that go on Shudder, so I can support them however I can. I think mainstream horror is in not an awesome place just because, it's like right now we're getting, the reboot kind of things with the Halloween movies. We're getting a new Texas Chainsaw movie next year, and we have Conjuring movies. Yeah. The Conjuring movies, I think, are not very good, and they just keep churning out spinoffs for those. I don't think many Blumhouse movies are very good, and they kind of run the horror industry right now in terms of mainstream. But within the indie scene, there's a lot of really cool things happening. And so that's one reason that I like Shudder, is that they get a lot of like, not underground movies, but just movies that don't have any mainstream distribution for them or anything. They're made on a really small budget, and they pick up a lot of those and give them the audience that they deserve that I wouldn't have heard about otherwise.
That's cool.
That is cool. Kind of, creates a little bit of room for everyone that's trying to put their creative work out there and get eyes on the project. I feel like, horror movies for me, I go back and forth, I'm a 32-year-old man, and sometimes they freak me out. I'm gonna have to keep a light on at night, on some of these. So for me, it's like, if I watch it with someone, like my girlfriend likes them, or, if I'm hanging out with Arthur, he puts it on, I'll watch it. But I don't know if it's a genre for me that I typically would put on by myself. I think it freaks me out usually too much. Some of them are cheesy though. I know what you're saying. Like, some of them I'm like, this acting is horrible, and I just can't get into it.
Yeah, it's definitely that's one reason a lot of people don't really like horror movies, is because there's, I think, more bad ones than good ones out there, just because, especially with like big studios, they think, oh, we'll just call it a horror movie. It doesn't matter if it's good. It's going to make money because people like to go to the theater and get spooked. And usually the writing's not good. The acting's usually really bad because they just want, just some hot teenagers they can kill off, and then that's it. And, so there's a lot of really low quality horror out there. And so, it's hard to find good horror movies. A lot of the ones I've watched this year that had really cool concepts that I thought were going to be good ended up being really bad, in my opinion. And so it's hard to find the good ones, but when you find a good one, it's just, it's amazing to find one, because when they're really good, they hit different.
They definitely do. And like, I know it's an older one, but that whole Paranormal Activity one where they had the cameras up in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. The original
first one. Yeah. I know they milked that, but the very first one had me getting goosebumps, and like, where you're like, I mean, cause I've had some paranormal stuff happened in the past, and I totally believe in that whole realm of energy.
Mhm.
And so it's nice when you can find a good horror that is set in reality enough to be really believable.
Mhm.
And then that way you could really like lose yourself in like, what if this was actually a thing, sort of thing.
They did a good job with that with Paranormal. There's two movies that have stuck with me that have impacted my life. That's one of them, Paranormal for sure, because I saw that in theaters. The first one, it came out and I was blown away. I came home
Yeah.
and I was freaked out. I was like, did I leave that light on? I don't remember leaving the light on. Like it freaked me out. The other big
Yeah.
one that impacted me was The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, that was good.
Oh,
That
that's
was
a good
an
one.
epic movie.
Mhm.
And just there was just something about the way that the story was told, and the dark side around the whole like court case and the 3 a.m. thing. Every time I wake up and see 3 a.m. on the clock, I always think of that movie.
Right?
Oh man. Yeah, both of those, I mean, I was only like 10 when the original Paranormal Activity came out, so I did not see it in theaters. But I remember seeing just the commercials for it on TV and thinking like, oh my God, it's a real, like, I didn't really understand what found footage was yet. So I was like, oh my God, ghosts are real. And they got it on film and now it's in theaters. Yeah, so that one.
On the Blair
yeah.
Witch Project too.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, I wasn't born when that one came out. I know when we watched it in one of my horror classes at school, a lot of kids were making fun of it. They're like, oh, this isn't scary. This is just stupid. But I think what they didn't realize was just how real it seemed. There were a few weeks there where people thought it was real. And these people had died and were missing. And so
when it first came out.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's been two reactions to both those movies, the Blair Witch and Paranormal. Either people laughed at it and thought it was ridiculous, or people got actually genuinely spooked by it. And the Blair Witch too. I mean, we're in our 30s, so the 90s when that came out, late 90s, early 2000s, whenever it was, that was a big deal. I mean,
it was big.
You're sitting in the movie theater, you're seeing all this motion happen. I mean, it looked like they recorded it on just a handheld camera, and that's what brought
that is what they recorded
realness.
it on.
Yeah.
I think one thing with really low budget horror, like the first Paranormal Activity was made for like 15 grand, something like that.
Wow.
And when you have a lower budget like that, it forces you to, obviously sometimes you wind up with low budget garbage, but low budget, when it is done right, it forces you to kind of utilize all your money like that and utilize the scares to make them more realistic, instead of just like, oh, it's just, like Exorcism of Emily Rose had a really low budget because it was just horror movies usually don't have a super high budget unless it's like a Jordan Peele movie and that kind of thing. I love finding kind of just the more low budget stuff that doesn't have a big studio backing it or a big name actor or anything like that. Scott Derrickson has done some cool stuff. He's the guy that did Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I was raised Catholic and I still am, and so anything having to do with like demons and that kind of thing, it freaks me out just a little bit still.
For sure.
Yeah. They did a good job capturing that for sure. And I didn't know a lot of that information. I didn't realize it was such a low budget film because, that's not something that usually crosses my mind unless it's really obviously cheesy for sure. But that makes me want to get a little bit more into the indie scene, I feel like, because I look at the music business the same way. Some of the underground music I listen to is better than the stuff we hear on the radio. And you just don't know what great content's out there until you find it.
Oh, then the Haunting on Hill House. I just thought about that. That was one of my favorite horror series. And
it was really good.
You saw that? Okay, yeah, I had to watch it twice because that story was just so gripping. But my second question, screenwriting.
Yes.
So would you prefer to screenwrite horror movies, or do you how do you pick what you feel like can sell? And because I personally myself, I would be writing like some sci-fi fantasy type of epic adventure with loss and gain, and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know how that works. Let's say that you're heavily screenwriting, you made it. Do you just get to choose what you write, or are you is it like a music contract where they're like, hey, we need you to pump out whatever, or I have no idea.
Yeah, so it definitely depends. Like me personally, what I want to write is horror. That's the only thing I've written since I got to college. I tried to write sad family dramas and that kind of thing. And then somewhere I just picked up horror and that just became my go-to. So that is the dream for me, is to write horror movies. But once you do make it big, it varies. Sometimes you do get hired for, you'll do a lot of uncredited rewrites or uncredited treatments and that kind of thing. Like Carrie Fisher, When she wasn't acting, she was a script doctor, and she's got uncredited script doctoring on dozens of scripts.
Where
Especially
she
a
would
lot of
like go through and try to make them better.
yeah, she just go through and fix them, almost entirely rewrite them. But then, because of contract rules and that sort of thing, her name wouldn't wind up on it, because you have to change, I think, somewhere between around 40% of the script in order to get a writing credit for it. And so if she's just fixing dialogue here and there, it doesn't, you don't get to qualify for it, which is something that's up for debate quite a bit. Like what with a movie, when you see the credits, when it says so and so and then the word and so and so, they worked as a team. But if it's an ampersand kind of thing, I think that's what it's called, the little swirly thing.
Yeah, the ampersand.
Yeah, thank you. That's when it was someone else was brought in to rewrite the script or work on a part of it.
So if and is written out, then they co-did it together, but the ampersand, so that has a different meaning to where they like kind of just did the co-write. Wait, what was it? What kind of writing?
The rewriting, the script doctor.
Rewriting, yeah.
Yeah,
Script
I think
doctor,
it's.
yeah.
I hope I got that right. It's either or vice versa. I can't remember. There's a way that you can tell though.
Well, everyone's gonna remember if you got it wrong now.
I know this
Sorry.
is gonna follow me forever. I'm gonna be getting an Oscar, and someone will stand up and be like, "You got the ands wrong," and then they take my Oscar away from me. But yeah, something like that. And so, yeah, so sometimes you'll just get hired, like, hey, we liked your script, you're a good writer, now you're going to fix all these other scripts for us. And you're not going to get credit for it, but you are going to get paid really well. And so that is a job that you make a lot of money doing, is as a script doctor. And so, or sometimes you'll rewrite it and you do get a credit for it, and the original writer isn't credited because you changed so much of it. And so, or they hire you like, hey, we have an idea that we bought from someone, or an exec had the idea and now we need you to write it. And so there's a lot of different ways to make money as a feature screenwriter. With TV, it's different. I don't know as much about TV since that's not really the field I want to go into. You have to get a TV writer on here for those questions. But yeah, with feature scripts, and then sometimes you sell a script and then you go off on your own, and then you just sell another one a few years later, and you just kind of work as, a lone wolf kind of thing for the rest of your life. You don't get a
script writer.
Yeah, you don't get a contract deal with the studio, and that's more kind of the dream that everybody wants, is that you're your own boss pretty much. But that's a lot less common, especially in the studio system. Someone that's a higher up will come up with an idea, and then they hire people to write it. That's the most common.
So when the credits roll at the end of the movie, I'm taking it that you're paying attention to who's involved. You want to know the deets, the juice in there, whereas most people are getting up, they're emptying their popcorn, they're done, they've had it. The credits are an important thing, I feel like, because the actors take, good actors, I always feel like give the credits to the screenwriters and directors. Say, look, this, The Sopranos is one of my favorite shows. Wouldn't be possible without David Chase, and the writers behind it. Those guys kind of are like the hidden, rock stars of this great production.
It's true.
Yeah. No, one thing that has always kind of frustrated me is that so often films are credited to just the director, and then the screenwriter is completely left out of the conversation. And one thing that really upset me when I was in college and people were making their thesis films was that the directing students were allowed to write their own scripts. And usually they were really bad because they weren't majoring in screenwriting, so they didn't know how to write. But they wanted to be, the next Tarantino, the next Woody Allen, and then of course they wanted to star in their films as well. And that was their thing. And so all of us screenwriting kids, it was really rare if any of our scripts would get produced by the end of the year. And it hardly ever happened because it was always just people directing their own stuff. And that is still really common. You get those directors that only want to direct the things that they've written. And sometimes it works really well. Sometimes you get a Jordan Peele or Tarantino and that kind of thing. I keep bringing up Tarantino. I'm not even that big a Tarantino fan. But you get those directors that can do that, but it's a lot more rare that you can be a jack of all trades sort of thing. And a lot of times when you get kind of an egomaniac that wants to handle all aspects of it, it's not very good. Because you get too close to it, I feel like. And then you can't really see what the flaws are.
I can relate that to like making songs, because you make the beat, you hear the beat 1,000 times before you write the lyrics, and then you write the lyrics and you heard it another 1,000 times, and then you're trying to get it all right, and then you record it, and then you try to mix and master it. And by the time that you're mixing and mastering it, it's just like, at some point you need to step away, so it's totally easy. You could totally burn yourself out on a project for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And there's always, of course, the ego involved, and I'm sure, as we all know, especially in the entertainment business, a lot of egos. And people, oh no, I know the right way. I'm not, no one's opening new information, and that's all well and good if they're making it on their own. But I feel like that could really get in the way of a great production, would be somebody's ego.
Yeah, there's something that I kind of disagree with. This is a hot button issue, but it's the whole auteur theory. And my school even taught a class on it where you were just studying the filmmakers that write, produce, and sometimes star in their own stuff. And I think in the 70s and 80s, it became a big problem with your Woody Allens and your Warren Beatty's and those guys. And there
What's
is
the auteur
Tarantino.
theory? Like, I don't know what that is.
You haven't heard of that either.
Yeah, so it's kind of I did not take the class on it, so I don't know it that well, but it's just kind of the theory that if you can do all those things, then your movie is just automatically better. And I guess there's not really a theory behind it. I'm not sure why they call it that. But just kind of studying auteurs that can do, that can be jacks of all trades. And I don't think there's many people out there that can do that, but there's a lot of people that try to do it. Like my guy, Guillermo del Toro, he usually has a co-writer or two co-writers on his scripts, or he doesn't even write it at all. He just directs it. And I think that really helps because you need kind of that outside perspective to your work to help you tell you like, hey, this isn't working. We need to fix this. And so, it's not quite as common as it used to be. A lot of those guys have retired. Like Warren Beatty doesn't do it anymore. Woody Allen is still there, I think, but we're not talking about him. And then like Kevin Costner's kind of retired. He used to do that a lot, but he's not really, he just acts now. There's a few others that I can't think of. There were a lot in like French cinema that used to do it, but they have all since, that was in like the 40s. And so, I'm not really sure why they call it auteur theory, because I can't think of what the theory is at the moment, but it is just studying what an auteur is and whether or not it's effective or not effective to be an auteur.
Well, I would say jack of all trades, master of none. So you might know how to do a lot. And I feel like I can kind of fall into that because I know how to do like some construction, selling stuff. Like I know how to do I know a little about a lot, but I'm not like a pure expert in some of these different things. So I feel like that would be the downfall of the auteur theory, is that, if you know how to do all these other things, then you're not an expert in any individual one of those things. I mean, it's like you have to constantly practice to get better. You have to practice writing scripts to get better at writing scripts, and you got to fail too. So then it's really interesting. How many scripts are you working on right now? Like, do you have like several projects that you're kind of piecing together throughout the last months, or like what's that look like?
Yeah, so I finished up a script a couple months ago that I worked on over COVID. I've been dealing with that like post-grad, kind of still in the pandemic, kind of depression fog lately. So I haven't really been writing much at the moment. Most of my things, I come up with ideas in my head. Most of my stories are based off weird dreams I've had. And so I'll write those down. I'm like, oh yeah, that was really good. And then I'll usually write most of the movie in my head before I even put it down on the page. And so that's what I've been doing a lot of lately. I just haven't, like the last script I came up with, I had a dream about it one night and then I started writing it the next day because it just kind of poured out of me. But usually it takes me a while before I'll actually start writing it. Kind of just because I'm scared. Even if I'm just writing for myself, it's still scary just to start writing and putting words on the page. I'm not sure why it is, but it just is. And so I've written 3 features so far, and quite a few kind of just like short ideas, and then several features that I never went back and finished. A lot that I started and didn't finish.
I can relate to that with songwriting. I played in a band here in Denver, Colorado for a while.
Oh,
and
cool.
When it came to like writing songs, I always felt that I did not do well when it was like, okay, we're sitting down and writing tonight. Like if it was a scheduled writing time, I'd come up with some of my worst work. It was the best when I would wake up out of a dream, like you said, or just a random, I'm driving to the grocery store. I got it. I would do the talk to text just to get it down, get some of those things out. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, no, I do a lot of that. Like my notes app in my phone is full of ideas that I have. I just need to. I've been really busy with trying to find like a real job and that kind of thing, and so I've kind of let. I can acknowledge that I've kind of let my writing kind of fall to the wayside the last few months, and I need to get back to it just because it is what I really like to do. I just haven't had that spark yet, even though I have quite a few ideas I really want to work on right now. But yeah, a lot of them.
Well, I got a challenge for you.
Okay.
Let's put some pen to paper
Oh boy.
before next Monday.
Okay.
And because okay, so here's one. I've been watching a lot of motivational videos, so blame these things. They talk about, because you had mentioned, there's like that kind of adrenaline emotion, scared. Writing down, putting it down is like giving you this emotion, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. It means that you're on the right track, because
Yeah, it's a great feeling once you start doing it.
well, and also that like because like it means so much to you that like it's creating these deeper emotions, even just performing the act, so I think that's a good thing, because that means that you do really care about it and really have a passion for it. And I'm quoting these motivational videos, but they're like, right when your mind is telling you no, or right when, if you're working out and you want to quit, like that's when you have to push, or like, or like the best things are on the other side of fear. Like those sort of sentences and phrases and ways of perceiving tasks. I feel like that's a really cool challenge. So I know you got all this stuff right here just ready to, so I just want to throw that challenge out to you, because look, I have FOMO. I used to want to be a rapper. This kind of scratches the same itch of like, speaking messages and having it heard. That's what music was to me. But like, I'm constantly thinking about it, and I regret like not doing it constantly. And like, I'll still freestyle, but that's not like actually writing and being articulate. So like,
Right.
I'll do that same challenge with you. I will also put pen to paper before Monday, just in a different way.
And it's not going to be so much. It's going to be what, not or quality over quantity. So it's not about how many words get put on the paper. It's just, stuff you want to get down. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, exactly. The thing about life is that it's like, it's so easy to like, and I've made a bunch of excuses. Like, I know you don't know me that well, but I've overcome a heavy drug addiction that took, I was addicted for 12, took 5 to get off of it. Like, I've went through these things like where I was lower and didn't have priorities, and now I'm trying to like work on them to make them better. And so I want to challenge myself. And part of doing that is, trying to hold, Kevin accountable, hold you accountable, Amanda, because you went to school for all this stuff. Yeah. So I'm just trying to build this energy, because it's just, we got today once, and I'm not trying to live life in like regrets. I want to do things that make me feel fulfilled. And I just know 100% that once you finish that first page or whatever, or that first dialogue scene, that you're going to be like glowing and happy. And, that's what people need to pursue and continue to do in their lives. The things that like really, because, the day jobs, like I got day jobs, that's how I met your roommate, Rachel, was through the day job, so it's like, is that fulfilling though? Like
it gets you A to B, you're out there walking the animals, that's getting it done right now. But yeah, absolutely. Doing what brings you a sense of fulfillment and joy. That's where we're trying to be, right?
And we all got to do what we got to do. I mean, I'm not trying to come down, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. No, I talked to my parents and my friends about it, and they're like, so what have you been working on? It's like, things, lots of stuff, man. But then in reality, it hasn't been much. And yeah, I know I'm only 24, and people bring up like, oh, you're so young, you have so much time. But like, it feels like I've lost,
you don't have time.
Yeah, I've lost, we lost like 2 years of our lives here to, the pandemic. And especially us that are younger, those are really valuable years there. And so it feels like Yeah, especially like what you're talking about. I need to take advantage of the time I have right now because you don't know when things are going to shut down again and that kind of thing. And now that's one thing that my mom brings up a lot is that you're having this part-time job right now. I'm never going to have this same amount of time to write that I have right now because I will eventually get a full-time job, and then I'm going to be too tired to, write all the time.
Or
And
maybe
so
you'll
this
like
is-
come up with a new story based on the work horror.
Yeah,
you know?
I've been the thing I've been working on my head right now is kind of based on what I'm doing. Now it doesn't have to do with dogs, but just kind of the situation in life that I am right now, where it's like, all right, I went to college and everything fell apart, and now I'm stuck here not doing the thing that I want to be doing. I was a barista for a month. I stopped dog walking and was a barista, and it was so bad. Everyone is so mean right now. Just customers, and my bosses were really mean, and so I quit and I went back to the dogs because they're so much
Yes.
nicer than people.
That was a good choice.
It was a very good choice. I'm glad. I've noticed a big increase in like my mental health switching back to dog walking. But yeah, I forget where I was going with this. But anyways, that is one thing that I've kind of been working on in my head is kind of just that frustration and trying to get it out there.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of material that you're ready to release.
Yeah. It's
Once
just,
the muse hits, the
Mhm.
muse has to kind of hit, maybe light a candle. I don't know what kind of vibe. Maybe you could like put on some red lights in the background for like the horror feel, like, get
Yeah.
your room.
Red means scary.
But
It's the ambiance.
I
Mhm.
wonder though, because like, okay, you're talking about how you like get through the door, how you
Mhm.
break through the door for screenwriting. And there's probably a bunch of different ways to do it.
There are,
Right.
yeah.
So I could see how, you're like, there's a lot of things like that's big, like it's a lot. And so just try to do it in like little tangible tasks. Like whenever I have a big project that is obviously daunting, it's like just break it up into little, just little things that are easily doable. Because you probably have to like copyright your stuff before you send it out, so then people don't steal your script. Like you probably have to protect it. And then, like, I mean, there's probably a bunch of different layers, and like even preparing to just send it out to places, and it's like, how do you do that? Like you could even probably watch credits and then be like, oh, I really like this movie. Like who's one of these people? And then you find their name and try to do research and then, try to find people that I don't know. Like how do you break the door down?
I don't know if there's a right or wrong way, right? It's just about
Yeah,
getting it out there
there's
and doing
a
it.
lot of different ways. The biggest thing is just who you know.
Mhm.
It's finding an agent's a really big way, that because they're the ones that can get you like in the door to submitting your scripts. Most of the scripts that I read when I was at my internship were all from represented writers. And so, but in order to get an agent, usually you got to have a contest. You have to have won some contest. That really helps. Or you just have a really kick-ass script that an agent is like, we can totally make money off of this. And then they'll pick you as a client. Or you just get really lucky and you're able to talk to someone who will take a chance on you. But it's all based off, being in the right place at the right time. And so much of it is up to chance and luck in this industry, especially.
Yeah, and to quote, Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky, you miss
Yeah.
100% of the chances you don't take. I
Mhm.
love that quote. It's
No, it's
fantastic.
a good one.
But it's true. It really is about who you know. And
Mhm.
we've been so fortunate to meet a lot of people in this business, with podcasting and just talking to so many different people. And we'll talk about this off air. We might have a connection in LA that we can talk about off air. But
Oh,
I did
wow.
want to circle back to something that you said early in the episode about voice acting. I have a comment and then I have a question.
All
My
right.
comment is this: after hearing your voice for the last hour, I can picture you playing like an animated role. I could hear it.
Thank you.
Totally. 100%. I could totally hear it. Whatever that show is, I don't know, but I could hear it. And my question is that something you'd be interested in pursuing also? I know you see you were taking lessons in it. I kind of went down that road too. I got told I had a radio voice early, so I played around with it a little bit. So I was just kind of curious as to what you're doing with it.
Yeah, so that's something I've kind of stumbled into in the last few months. I took lessons for about 7 months. And I'm still taking lessons. And I was in a online lecture series with a bunch of former Disney producers and writers that worked in the animation department. And one of the producers, Don Hahn, who produced like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and like basically all your favorite movies from when you were a kid. I just asked him a question and he was like, you have a really cool voice. You should do voice acting. I was like, all right, cool, man. I've never really seriously considered that or anything. That's very nice of you. And then a guy that was in the lecture with me, he was like, hey, I know a guy at the studio where I am renting a space who does voice acting stuff. You can connect with him. And so I started taking lessons with that guy, just kind of a spur of the moment thing. I was taking lessons with that guy. I just started taking lessons with a different teacher. She's very cool. And so I've made my commercial reel, which is usually where you're supposed to start. Which
Nice.
is because since that's usually what they want is they want to hire you for commercials. Your agent will want you if you have a good commercial voice because that's where most money is made instead of animation. There's more money in commercials. And so I have that ready. But one thing I just had my first lesson with this new teacher today was that kind of similar to screenwriting, there is no one way to break into voice acting. And it's all very much who you know and being in the right place at the right time, because there's so many people trying to break in. You can be the most talented, screenwriter or voice actor in the world, and you still won't make it if you aren't in the right place. If you aren't in the right place where you can meet people that can get you there. That's one of the reasons that I did move to LA was because I knew, even though some schools in Seattle and even in Oregon have film programs, I'm not going to be able to make the connections up there that I would be able to make down here.
That's true.
And so as much as it hurt to leave home, that's why I came down here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, great move going down there. I mean, that's obviously creating opportunities for you.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's all you can do. Like, you're never going to get a new opportunity hanging out at home. You know, it's not really going to happen. Like, you have to get out there, talk to people. Like, typing and emailing and texting is never going to convey emotion like a conversation will. So you got to go out there and like let people feel your energy. So I feel like you're doing that. I was curious though, are you familiar with like affirmations and like visualizations and like seating techniques where you like implant emotion? Yeah. So I mean, that's totally something that I 100% believe works. It works in mysterious ways, sure. But through that, I think you can manifest things as well. Excuse me. So that might be a fun place to kind of start too. Like what is really your goal? Like, what do you really want to accomplish? And think about that as if you've accomplished it already, and how does that make you feel having achieved that? So that way you're like creating that success energy on the subject that you want success on. Cause like I affirmed being sober for 5 years to myself before it worked. And like I would think about having financial stability. I would think about getting my credit up. Like I had a car repo, so I'll think about having wheels, and it's just like, you got to keep like, I don't know, because the mind is so powerful. Sure. Putting yourself in the position and having those, right place, right time moments, that absolutely exists. And that's very important. And it's weird because then you look back and you're like, oh, how did this even happen? You're like, that was coincidental. So those are fun moments. Yeah. But it's like this, you got to have this like mentality to like really, like you've already done it. And I feel like that's an important reminder for myself. A lot of this stuff is just reminders for myself, but that might also help. Like proper affirmation 5 times a day, 2 minutes each time.
It's all about that mental health, right?
2 to 3 months. That's what they say. A proper affirmation should take like 2 to 3 months to really start working, maybe even longer, depending what you're trying to affirm.
No, I agree with you, Art. And I think that is good advice. It may be something you can incorporate while you're taking the dogs for a walk and just affirming to yourself, hey, I'm an epic screenwriter. This is going to get noticed.
Epic voice actor, because that's going to open up opportunities too. Sorry.
I excel. Right. Like those are the kind of affirmations that Art taught me. That's something I've learned from Art, and they do work because even just affirming that, then that kind of gives the motivation to get out there and maybe rub shoulders with somebody, because you're thinking about it so much. It truly is. I know we kind of sound like some hippie stuff over here, but it can work. I feel like
I'm a modern day hippie, so that's okay.
You are a modern day hippie.
Yes.
No, I believe in that stuff. Like I've got three things here on my wall that my mom has sent me, like for my birthday or Christmas, that are just affirmations. And she's like, I want you to put these on your wall so you read them when you get up every day. And I do look at them. I sit at this desk like 90% of my day, and so I look at them all the time. And I know like manifesting is kind of a meme right now, but it's also like a lot of people like joke about manifesting something, but it is something that I do think can happen. Like I always feel silly talking about it, but I think you can totally speak things into existence. I think it's much more helpful to say that good things are going to happen instead of saying bad things are going to happen. Like we believe in jinxing things, so why not believe in the reverse of that? I don't know what that's called, but
Well, no, because it's still an people are using affirmations regardless, and just some of the psychology behind it, like behind you have your conscious, which is like me coming up with these sentences, but then my subconscious is the one that's feeding my conscious kind of where I want to go with stuff. So the subconscious is always recording everything. It records every event, every emotion, scent, everything's in there. So including your thoughts are recorded in there. So if you're not aware of your thoughts and you're not trying to implement positive thoughts, then most likely your mind is just running rampant. And you're affirming yourself like, oh, I'm not good enough to do this, or I'm fat, like I'm never going to lose weight. Like that's something I noticed. I was saying to myself, like, God, I'm just so overweight. Like, and so I like caught that. Now I'm thinking like losing weight is easy. I'm healthy, and so it's like, but you have to first be conscious of your thought process in the first place to start implementing into the subconscious. It's like an echo chamber, so it repeats it back to you. But so that's kind of like the whole, like how and why that works is because your subconscious is constantly throwing stuff at your conscious to digest.
And didn't you also say that like the negative side of things, typically the mind is naturally more comfortable going to that side because it's easier to think those negative thoughts, like getting pissed off in traffic, getting mad, about this, that, and the other. It takes more effort to remain positive.
I mean,
oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, all of us naturally want to complain about something. Like I try to stop myself from complaining constantly. Like, why am I complaining about this? Like, what does that do to the person that's listening? Like what? And so, yeah, it's natural for people to do that, and that's okay. But you just have to kind of recognize it and decide what's important for your brain to digest. And so I love that whole conversation and psychology and power of thought. Like I could talk about that like horror movies and stuff. Like it's so much fun.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of euphoria a little bit. We've all felt that, like when you're really proud of something, or something's going really well, you're like, man, this is epic, I just can't wait to get this out there. You're feeling good when you leave the house, just everything's going well. That feeling, it's tough to maintain, of course, but man, it's motivating.
Yeah, it's a feeling that I feel like probably a lot of us have kind of lost out on in the last few years. Like I don't think I've felt that way since, like, on a consistent basis since college. My senior year of college, things were going really well for me until the pandemic hit, and so but it's like a feeling that we do kind of strive after. And there are days where I get a random burst out, and it's like, hey, things are kind of going okay for me. I made it out to LA. I have a job. It's not the job I want, but at least it's a job. And
no, but you're taking chances, putting yourself out there, and it's easy to forget our accomplishments. It really is, because humans like naturally just want to keep moving on to the next thing. Like, what's the next goal? And we forget that like Amanda, you graduated college, you moved out of your home. Like I've lived in Colorado my whole life. Like you've done more than I have in that sense. To LA of all places, like that's a huge city. So that takes like, guts. That takes like some ferocity and some willpower, and so that's free energy that you have already accomplished, that you can just tap into at any time because it's there. You've done it, So I think it's good to give ourselves reminders and pats on the back because, why not? Why not?
Like I have a big problem with comparing myself to other people. Like I look at the people like that graduated with the same year as me, or like the school I went to. It wasn't my high school It was a public school, but it was like a charter school, and so everyone, yeah, it was a lottery to get in, and so but everyone there was crazy smart, and it was only me and another girl that ended up pursuing an arts field for our careers, and we both ended up going to the same college, weirdly enough. But everyone else has gone into like banking and medicine and engineering, and I see all the things they've accomplished already. And I have to remind myself, like, their path is just different from mine. Just because they're successful now doesn't mean I'm, not successful as well, just in a different way. And I'm not behind them or anything. They're not, they may be more financially successful than I am right now, or more, they're actually in the career field that they want to be. So that's huge. But we all graduated college at the same time, and we're all just taking, kind of different, longer and shorter paths to the same destination pretty much. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. Social media is really bad with that.
And it's so easy to compare yourself. It really is easy.
Well, yeah. And I think we've all been there. I mean, in social media, you touched on, I think every week we talk about the toxicity of it. And, and that's just reason number 107 of why it is. And I can relate to what you're saying. I'm 32 years old. I look at, I'm a big NASCAR fan, football fan. All these guys in their 20s are out there crushing it. It's like, man, where did I go wrong, kind of thing. And those thoughts do cross my mind. So I think that's a natural thing to think about. Too. But you're right. I mean,
me too.
That's a normal thing to think about. But it's like, okay, and then you ground yourself. Well, what am I doing right now? That's what matters, right? And where do I want to go?
Yeah, it's like I remember the first time my family and I do March Madness every year, and my first year out of college, I was like, oh my god, I'm older than all these guys. Like that blew my mind. Like, look how successful they are already. Right? It really is. Or even just watching professional sports, most of them are younger than me, except for like the quarterbacks and that kind of thing. Most of them are older. But it's wild to see that. But some people, just maybe get a little more successful faster than we do, or we're successful in different ways. But it is, I don't know why as humans we feel the need to constantly compare ourselves to other people, but it's just, based on what we look like, or not just what we're doing, but what we look like, or what we sound like, or how we live, and that kind of thing. And it's really hard to deprogram that from your brain.
Well, for sure. I mean, how do you define success?
Yeah, that too.
Because that's really the question, because of course, successful in America is, doing good in high school, going to the dances, going to college, getting a degree, finding somebody that you love, getting engaged,
buying a house in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
There's those social norms.
That's it. And so that's a society pressure and of a pre-context of how your life should be. And that is absolutely in effect. And it does affect people. And so, unless if that doesn't fall into your definition of success, then you're going to make that your definition of success. And I just use that as one example. Sure, there's a bunch of cultures around the world and different society norms and stuff, but just as an example, like, it's so true. And like, how do you know? Like, you're a kid growing up, playing with toys, like getting all this media bombarded and parents asking, and it's like, and if you're never even taught that you can control your thoughts and like how powerful your mind is, then it's just all happening, so I feel like those are some of the important things there, is like, what is your actual definition of success? Because then, like, it doesn't matter how other people are succeeding. You're happy that they're succeeding, because that shows you that there's success in the world, and that success is tangible, and that it's accessible, so that's one thing I was reading in this book recently, where it's like, you never want to like be like, dang it, they succeeded, or like, God, I wish that like they didn't succeed, or something like that. Like, it was talking about that kind of thought process of not celebrating other people. Like, so those two rappers from Florida, excuse me, I'm a little dyslexic sometimes.
It's all good.
and they got like the Island Boy track, and they got like the yellow hair. Have you seen them cats?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So because I feel like I'm a lyricist, and so I'm like seeing their success and them blowing up. And initially I'm like, wow, these guys aren't talented. Like, this is kind of crappy music, and kind of hating on them.
Yeah.
And I had to remind myself of like, well, but good for them, because they're doing something, they're making it happen, they are seeing success is there. So like that's just my whole little food for thought on the whole success thing, and like comparing to other people, because everyone's going to do that. Everyone's going to compare.
We've all done it.
Yeah, that's okay, but it's just like, why are you comparing? You have to be comparing because something isn't settled within yourself. So then you got to think like, well, what's not settled within myself? Like, why do I compare? And so I don't know. You could go down this long hole of that whole thought process and kind of dissect it and stuff. It's interesting, but who cares what other people are doing?
Well, I mean, yeah, to piggyback off that with success, I mean, I think that the way I look at it now at 32 years old, I've tried a bunch of different things, and I measure it as being the level of happiness and fulfillment that I get out of life. I feel like that's what's successful. Sure, everybody, wants $1 million in the bank account, nice car, but is that really success? Sure. I mean, to some people it might be, but for me, I feel like controlling my time and money and enjoying this life, that's what's successful. And that's what I'm striving for, and it's a battle every day. We got to put on our armor and go to war every day to achieve that. Got to believe and achieve it.
Yeah.
All right, man. I know we're kind of getting wild here.
Yeah. This is getting real deep. But that's something that I think, I kind of keep repeating myself, but it is something that we have to remind ourselves of. And I think it's cool that not just us specifically, but people in general talk about this stuff. Like, I see a lot of memes about manifesting things in your life. And there's a popular one where when someone's doing, like when you see someone being really successful on like a celebrity or something, people in the comments will be like, Lord, I've seen what you've done for others and I want that done unto me kind of thing. And it's a similar idea. And so, but it is cool that it is kind of a popular talking point. I remember like The Secret book being a big deal.
Yes.
When I was a kid, there was an episode of It's Always Sunny that talked about it. And I don't know much about it, but it's cool to see it become more of a mainstream idea that's like, it's cool to be positive. You don't have to be so cynical and complaining all the time. It's fun to be cynical from time to time. Like, especially when I'm talking about movies, like I'll rant about a movie for hours, how much I hated it. But it is also,
and that's all in good fun too. I mean, there's a place for everything. Like, I feel like you could be like toxically positive. Like sometimes sure. I feel like I'm too optimistic and I'm like, I need to dial this back, or just, I don't need to say my opinion here because people don't want to hear what I have to say right now, because when every problem is an opportunity, and that's like your mindset and that's how you live, like fully, like you're dedicated to problems or opportunities. When you hear people talking about problems, you're just like, great, that's excellent for you. Like this is something, for you to accomplish right now. And it's really what your beliefs are, and are your beliefs cemented or are your beliefs malleable? Like, I feel like the older we all get, can't teach an old dog new tricks, and that whole saying, like, it's important to remember that there's other ways to do things. Like with one of my old girlfriends, like, she would clean differently than me, or do laundry a little bit differently than me, and it like used to bother me, but the end result was the same. So I was wasting my energy being upset about a minute detail. Like, so I kind of lost like my focus there.
I smell what you're stepping in.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting. I could do psychology all night. Maybe you should do like a psychology thriller, like where it's like
psycho thriller.
Where there's like
thriller.
Where at the end, like you thought you knew, but then obviously like, whoa, I had no idea, and wait, what? That was something that kind of is on other levels. It's not an easy watch, like you got to pay attention to it, and it demands a rewatch sort of thing, like Fight Club. Like you had to rewatch that a second time.
Or The Sixth Sense.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Sixth Sense. Yep. That was definitely, there's a couple movies out there. I like those ones where you watch it for a second, third, fourth time. You're like, whoa, I missed that.
Like
sometimes I get distracted.
The second time I watched The Sixth Sense, it was like, oh my God, I didn't even notice that. And right. that's, I mean, that movie's so good. That's why Shyamalan can keep making kind of garbage. for the rest of his career, because that one was just so good, and we just keep waiting for one to be as good as that one. I mean, I really liked Unbreakable. I'm a big Unbreakable defender.
All three of those, because there's three of them, right?
Yeah, I didn't see Glass. I heard not good things about it, so I haven't sought it out.
I didn't see Glass either. What was the one with the dude with 23 personalities?
That was Split, yeah.
Split, yeah.
That was all right.
Split.
Movie.
With James McAvoy.
I thought about that a lot after I saw it, actually. Those are the best movies, the ones that
Make you think about it.
yeah, and they like won't leave your mind, and you're just kind of like, man, that was so good.
Yeah, that one
Yeah,
was pretty good.
Yeah, I like movies that stick with you. I don't know if you already asked this question, but I think you asked on the genre of it. What if you had to pick? What would be your favorite movie of all time? And that's a tough one. I mean, it just is.
It is a
but
tough
do you have a
one.
favorite?
This one's kind of a basic choice, but I think Jurassic Park is my favorite movie of all time.
It's epic.
Well,
That's an epic choice.
Yeah.
yeah, can I dap you through the?
Yeah.
Can I dap you through this?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
It's one that I've loved since I was a kid. As I've gotten older, I appreciate it even more. Because as a kid, it was just like, yeah, dinosaurs. I'm not paying attention to anything else except the dinosaurs. But now as an adult and as someone that has studied film, it's like there's a lot of really successful things that this movie does. And it's kind of, there's very few movies that I would consider perfect, but it is kind of a perfect film. The performances across the board are all really good. The music's great. The effects are great. The story's good. The characters are good. I really can't think of a flaw that the movie has. I'd say like Shawshank Redemption's up there with that, and like The Princess Bride. Those are like the three perfect films that I can think of.
I don't know why, but I've definitely seen The Princess Bride like at least 7 times.
It's great. It's
Yeah.
a great
Yeah.
movie. Shawshank, fantastic choice. I'll tell
Yeah,
it's
it's
one of
so
those movies that like either can completely pull me in or I'll just go to sleep to it. Just listen to that nice narrator.
Yeah, just Morgan Freeman. Yeah. The music is that's one of the soundtracks that I listen to when I'm writing, because the Thomas Newman soundtrack is so good. And that one, and those are like my 3 kind of like my top 10 movies that or even top 5 that wavers all the time. But those are like my 3. Also, The Shape of Water is I'd actually say I like that one more than The Princess Bride. But it's definitely not a perfect film by any means. It's got its flaws. I think, again, the performances are all really good. The story is great. I think there's some problems with the script. That's just me personally. But I love it so much that I can see by it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple problems with it. It's not perfect. And I don't know why people hated it. Like I was in obviously in a screenwriting class when that movie came out, and we'd always end up talking about how, because the Oscars were coming up, and people would talk about like, oh, I hated The Shape of Water. Lady Bird needs to win all the Oscars this year. And I'd just be sitting there like internally freaking out, not getting upset because I didn't want to get upset. I just be like, how can you say that? It's such a good movie, and Lady Bird kind of sucks. So that's like the Shape of Water is like the hill that I will die on. I never have to fight anyone over Princess Bride or Jurassic Park or Shawshank being a good movie, but I have had to fight people on The Shape of Water. I don't know why. I've never seen The Shape of Water. It's really good.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
I'll say it's weird.
What genre is that? What genre is that movie?
It's more kind of fantasy drama, because it's about I'm not sure if you guys know what it's about. But basically, it's another Guillermo del Toro movie. And this woman she's mute, and she works, it takes place in like the late 50s, early 60s. And this mute woman works as a janitorial staff in a
is that the one
facility.
that's like, it's like a Hispanic, Latino people in it?
No.
Okay, I was thinking about it differently.
No, it's no. And then, the lead is white. And when she's there cleaning, she falls in love with this amphibian man that's there, and he's like a monster, and they fall in love.
I remember seeing the cover art for that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a pretty good story.
I've never seen that one.
Sounds like something my girlfriend want to watch. I'm gonna have to ask her. She's probably seen it. She's seen all these
Yeah,
movies.
I mean,
I'm like, no, I've never seen these.
I went and saw it 3 times in theaters.
Oh, wow.
The first time I saw it at a screening at my school. We got to see it a few weeks early. And I just remember there were these guys sitting next to me because it was a packed house, and they were just laughing through the whole movie. And I was so upset because I'm sitting there crying over how beautiful it is. And like, I'm rarely ever moved by love stories. Usually I think they're pretty dumb. But for some reason, this one got to me. And yeah, that is a movie that I will defend to the end. Yeah, but I mean, I'll admit it's weird. You know, you got to be okay with the woman falling in love with the fish man, and you have to find the fish man, you know, as an appealing character. One reason that I really like it is that the romance is all initiated by the woman. It's not the other way around. I think that's really cool and a fun take on it. And it's all like a consensual relationship, which is really nice to see in a movie. It's weird how kind of rare that is. And
Really, I've never tried to look at that.
Yeah,
that
just
piece of it.
just you know, I minored in women's studies, so yeah, I got that feminist killjoy inside of me, and you know, so it is one thing that I kind of take, you know, I see on a lot of movies and on a lot of romance movies, you know, that it takes sometimes the relationship is not on both sides kind of thing, and it's nice to see a relationship that is like healthy, and it's not normal because he's a fish man, but it's just nice to see a healthy relationship where they equally care about each other, which is really, you know, it's not super common to see, just a healthy relationship in a movie. And all the other characters are really good. The acting is so good. And then it won a bunch of Oscars, so I know I'm not alone in this. But yeah, that's another one I could go on and on about how much I love it.
I'm gonna watch it.
So I know you mentioned Quentin a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So I'm like sitting here while you're rattling off some of your favorite movies, and I'm like,
Mhm.
you know, which one? Like, I'm thinking like, because any movie that truly evokes emotion and like puts you in that zone, and it's Django Unchained.
Okay.
I love the gritty movies. I like it when it's like, oh man, that's real. You know,
Mhm.
like even though that gets a little exaggerated at times, I just love that because life is tough, like, right? Like it's never gonna be easier. And like I have a mentality now where I just expect problems to happen, and I'm prepared to handle problems with a positive attitude. And that's what I look. And so like when you can capture that in a movie where it's like gritty and people are trying to do the right thing for the right reasons, and it's hard, like I just kind of love those type of movies where it like evokes those type of emotions, where it's powerful, and it's like kind of motivating too. Like you go watch it, you could get broken by it, like kind of get emotional and like sad, but then you're also like so happy, like those kind of movies are great, you know, where they have all these different pieces. I wish I could like rattle off more of these that are like epic to me. I'm wearing a video game shirt.
Yeah, that's a classic.
This game is great,
Mhm.
but Red Dead Redemption 2.
I've been playing through that one right now, actually.
So that, I'm not going to spoil anything for you,
Mhm.
but that plot, that story, how they tell it, how you get to make choices, Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to go down as one of my favorite, like, because they have to write a script for that too. Like you don't just have to write
Oh yeah,
scripts
and
for.
yeah, a lot of video game writing is similar to movie writing, and a lot of movie writers will end up writing for video games and vice versa. Obviously the script is much longer because you got like a 20-30 hour game, and then there's a lot that is planned out before you even write the script. But yeah, they're really similar. I would love to get to work in video games. It's harder to break into, I think, than movies, because it's not like with the movie where you can just make a video game with your friends one weekend and have it be actually good. So it's a little bit harder, but like my brother's majoring in video game design right now, and so, which is very cool. And
Get that
yeah,
voice acting resume up. I feel
Yeah.
like because you already have that going on, right? So
Mhm.
that's already an opportunity that's present. So use that, because you know you get into voice acting. Sure, you do some commercials, whatnot, but you know with that you could build like a portfolio, you know,
Mhm.
and professionally record stuff and be like, look, here's me doing a serious thing, you know, funny thing, you know, like
Yeah.
whatever, and then just start blasting it out to people.
Mhm.
And like, you know, you'll meet people while you're doing that too. So like we were talking about earlier, all you could do is just try. I mean, I met Kevin in a parking lot. We
Oh,
lived in
wow.
the same complex.
That's so cool.
And I met him there. He was the younger bald dude that was always drinking a beer on his patio when I got home from doggy daycare, which I know I told you I did that. So
Not
this
much
goes
change.
way back.
This is a while ago.
And way back. And I asked him for a beer, you know, and
Here
he
we are
gave me a
now.
couple beers. And then one day I was like, hey, can I hop the rail, come on the other side? And then that's when we became friends. And like now we have this podcast together with, like, we've met so many people that are awesome like yourself. And
Fantastic.
like, you just don't know what's truly gonna come from something.
So true, man. Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's just about being lucrative and getting out there and trying different things and doing things that bring you happiness, like we talked about earlier, you know, the old cliches. But I agree with Art. I think the voice acting thing would be great. Love to see some of your work. You know, that's just, it's cool stuff. And it's cool to surround yourself with people with creative minds, because it always teaches you something. You know, that's what I love about playing in a band. Being around these guys that wrote music for years, they taught me so much. I had so much fun playing in a band. COVID hit, of course, and all the energy went here. But the fact remains, just staying creative and staying active with it, I think, is going to yield results in itself. And it's not even so much focused on the results. It's enjoying the ride. You know, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations, right?
That's a good one. Yeah. So many of my friends are in film or television. And so it's just nice to have, like in middle school and high school, I really didn't have many friends, just because I was a very awkward, undiagnosed autism kid. And so I totally understand why a lot of kids didn't like me. But it's nice, you know, being out of college to have such a great group of friends that I have right now. You know, my roommate Rachel's one of them. And so, without her, I wouldn't be here on the podcast. And so,
and she's super cool. We'll give Rachel a quick shout out.
Yeah.
So I'm a freight broker by day, and Rachel took over this position, and she picked up the phone and called, right? Like, people don't do that anymore. Like, people are afraid to have actual interactions. She was not afraid to do that. And then, you know, so we started talking, and like, she's actually a really awesome person.
No, she's wonderful.
I mean, people just do freight, and I do freight too, but like, I think Rachel's great, and like how she's playing the banjo and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and,
man. I had to message her because the banjo was picking up on the mic just an hour. When we first started, she was playing the banjo.
Oh, was it?
And I was like,
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay, I could hear it. So I was like, oh no, it's gonna be on the mic. But yeah, she's out here playing the banjo all the time, man. It's so cool.
That is cool. Great instrument for sure.
It
So
is,
yeah, going back to what you were saying, you know, kind of how you're a little awkward in high school. You said people, you know, friends or whatever. Now you're in a place where you're meeting great people, surround yourself with creative minds. That's what you were kind of touching on.
Yeah, so you know, it's great to have. Yeah, I just, when I was in middle school and high school and had like, I did drama club, which was really fun. But I didn't really have like close friends or anything. I was kind of just a social floater. Everybody seemed to like me, but nobody like hung out with me outside of school. And so I just kept telling myself, like, hey, once you get to college, you're gonna make friends, and then and then it'll be okay, because you'll find other weirdos like you. And it took a few years in college before I found these kind of artsy weirdos that I have now. And it wasn't until I joined like a drama club at my college that I ended up finding these people. And it wasn't until halfway through my sophomore year that I actually started to befriend the people. And so it kind of just went from there. And that's how I wound up. If it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have found this apartment, and I would have not moved to LA as quickly as I did. Because I wouldn't have had anywhere to end up. I would have had to find a roommate, find a place on my own, and all. It's very scary coming out to LA. LA is a scary place.
Oh, I bet.
And,
100%.
Yeah, we're lucky to live kind of outside the bubble, so it's not as crazy crowded here, but it's still, LA is intense. I want to move back home someday. I don't want to end up here forever. But yeah, if it wasn't for, you know, having just a weird little, it wasn't even like the main drama club at my school. It's kind of just a weird, they're called like just the little loser family is what we call ourselves. And just because we're all the kids that like aren't quite good enough for like the Chapman on Broadway club, because they're very elitist. And but we just like putting on shows. And we get one really cool thing is that we would put on student written shows. We're the only club that does that. And so I did get to we didn't do anything that I had written because I just don't write plays. But I got to stage manage and direct quite a few shows, and it was so fun. And I got to do stand-up comedy with the events that we would do, which I'd never done before. Now that's something that I'm trying to pursue as well. And so, yeah, so it's so cool how just people you meet lead you down all these crazy roads. And yeah, like I found out about the college that I went to because of a old lady that we knew from church. Her grandkids went to Chapman, and that's how I heard about it. And without her, I wouldn't have ended up at Chapman. I would have tried to get into USC or UCLA, not gotten in because it's so competitive, and I probably wouldn't have ended up in film. I'd be back home trying to be an English teacher or something.
The universe tends to unfold as it should, and you got the right mindset. Staying lucrative and moving forward and trying different things, comedy, voice acting. I mean, it's going to come full circle. There's no question about it. You're well poised, you're well spoken, you got a good attitude, and that's going to go very far.
Yeah, I try. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, with all this social media and how life can be so tough and complicated, and it's like you got to just trust it, like believe in yourself a bit more than other people do, I guess. And I mean, I could see that action through you. I mean, everything that you're doing. So I'm super excited to see what happens because like we're talking to you right now, like while you're a starving artist, like you're doing what you can to make it, you're creating opportunities, like it's gonna pop off. Like this thing is it's building energy. I can feel it. And it's gonna happen. So I'm really excited to see what happens and then what you come up with, because we always do repeat guests here. We always like to get people back on, like within the next year or so, and just kind of see what's been happening. And I guarantee it, like I feel the energy that you're gonna come in here like, oh yeah, I'm full-time voice acting now, or I got a couple scripts out there, or I could totally see that.
Oh, for sure. And the Denver Film Festival goes on here every year. Our good friend John X, he likes to interview a lot of people down there. So if you're ever interested in coming to the Mile High, we'll get you in studio.
Yeah, I've only ever been to Denver once, and that was to have a layover at your creepy airport.
There's so many conspiracies about
it's a weird airport.
Yeah,
I would agree with you.
It's a weird airport, man. And I just remember the air was really thin, even at the airport.
Yeah,
you're so high up there.
The Mile High City. It's a fun place. And of course, if you come through here, we'll get you on the show. That'd be great. But
Zoom, that'd be really cool.
Zoom makes it. Yeah, absolutely. And Zoom's, great option too, but it's always fun to sit down and we're gonna get you back on within the next 6 to 12 months. I feel like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hopefully I have more things to tell you about, more exciting developments.
Oh no, you had plenty.
This is a juicy episode.
I mean, look, you have the courage to come on, to come talk to us, be recorded, video recorded as well. That's like Kevin and I have gotten used to it, but it's a big deal, to come public. We're basically public speaking in like a private setting and then going public, but it takes courage. It takes courage to move to LA. I've lived in Denver my whole life. I've lived in Denver metropolitan area my whole life. Like I have never had the balls to get up and move to another city, let alone LA.
Yeah.
So like, that's pretty epic. If you could give one piece of advice to humanity, we like to ask people this.
Oh boy.
We hear a lot of creative things. So let's say you could give, if you could tell humanity one thing that's going to help everybody be better tomorrow, what would that piece of advice be?
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that was just, I guess just care for each other, Sometimes I feel like we, especially in we live in a society, and in this country, we're all very just kind of me focused. And so many of the things that we don't want passed, like universal healthcare and that kind of thing, it's like, well, yeah, but I don't need that. So why even bother passing it without thinking about everyone else around us? And so, I don't know, I guess just care about one another, look out for each other. I think that's something we all need to do more, especially right now. I don't know when this episode will go up, but we're recording it in the holiday season. This season is really hard for a lot of people. And so I think just look out for each other, be a buddy. I think that's the biggest thing we can do right now.
It's a good piece of advice for sure. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. People have been cooped up for 2 years now. They're getting out again, and they're rowdy and nasty, and everyone's been behind a screen and a keyboard for so long that we've kind of lost touch with just being nice and respectful to people and actually caring about them. We're all programmed to say, hey, how you doing? Oh, good. How are you? But how are you really doing? And I think to echo off that, to care for thy neighbor and, people you run into in the grocery store, just be nice. It really can change someone's day. We don't know what people are going through.
Yeah, it really, it's one thing I've never understood is like being rude to service people.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like that's one of the reasons
if you
I
go on
left
a
the
first date
barista
with
job.
somebody and they're rude to the service person, you're gone.
Oh, huge red flags.
That's true.
I just had to say that. I'm
Massive.
sorry. You can
No,
continue.
100%. I've worked in I've had 2 different food service jobs now, and like, no, it's wild just how mean people can be. And like, I get it. Sometimes you're having a bad day. But like even on like my worst days, I'm still really nice and pleasant to everybody because you never know. Like, at least with me, when I have a good interaction with someone, that makes my whole day. Like someone compliments my hair, my outfit, or something. Just the tiniest little things. You think about that and warms your heart the whole day. And for me, it's so much easier to just be pleasant than to be mean. Like if I were to be mean to someone, I'd have to actively try to do that because that's just not my mentality. I might be a little, ambivalent to some people, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's so much easier for us to just be nice to people. And I feel like we just forget how much power our words have.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Yeah, it is true. It's something we deal with every day, especially out there in LA. You got 17 million people. I mean, it's wild. We got 5 million here in Denver. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of people. You said you were a barista. I worked in the grocery business for almost 15 years. Very fortunate to be out of that business now. So I've seen it. I've been out there in the trenches taking grenades, so to speak. And you see all kinds when you're in the service industry. So that's solid advice, Amanda.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. So 2 things. I feel like somebody with your mentality that, is automatically positive, like that's your foundation of thought, is you're more optimistic and positive opposed to pessimistic and judgmental.
I try to be.
You're going to age less. Okay.
True.
Than these people that are stressing out all the time. Like, I feel like life, like people who are in their like mid 50s that look like they're in their 70s, they didn't treat themselves well. And not only like by drinking and, substance abuse, but also just their thought process and how they complain and their viewpoints on reality. And so I totally believe that that's a great foundation to have. You could build on that actually. And then the second thing is, like, with your point of just being kind to people, I've actually been trying to implement this where, like, I like to holler at strangers, like not holler at them like cat call, but like holler. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, hey, how's your day going or whatever. But I like to be extremely genuine when I do it. And I'll only do it if I know I could come off as really genuine. Right. Because like what you said, like somebody will compliment your hair and then like that'll make your day better. Yeah. And so it's free to build people up. It's absolutely free to build people up. And why not? Why not build people up? Like these people were building a fence in my neighborhood. And I've been seeing the work they've been doing. They're construction workers. A lot of people are like dirty construction workers and, like blah, 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 like all these stereotypes. I used to do construction, so I know. And so I like stopped the car and I was like, hey man, that fence is turning out really good. It did look good. And that probably made, like, they're probably finishing up their day. They're like, it does look good, doesn't it? Yeah. And that was free for me to do. And it probably helped them. And so that's kind of what I'm taking from what you're saying and in my own context and reality, what I'm experiencing. Be kind to people. Like, it's free to do that. I mean, sure, if someone is disrespectful and rude and incoherent, then like they don't deserve your respect. Yeah, you obviously.
Don't have to, it's not an obligation, But if they start off nice, there's no need to not be nice. Like, even when I'm not the barista, I'll see people being rude to the barista. And then I go up after and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what was going, are you, I don't know what else to say except to check on them. I've had to do that multiple times, just in line at Starbucks, asking if they're okay after seeing someone be so mean to them. And I just don't know. It seems like it takes so much more energy to be mean and rude. And again, we don't know what the rude person's dealing with, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's just no need for it. Everyone's gone through there's so much negativity in the world already. there's no need to add to that, is my vibe kind of thing.
I agree.
And obviously
Yeah, I agree.
I'll still add to it when I'm complaining about stuff and I'm having a bad day. It's just like, I just got to rant for a little bit. But we obviously we're not going to be perfect at this. We might slip up and be mean to somebody and not mean to, or just be rude. But it's if we make a conscious effort to do it, it's since once I got to college, I was a really negative person in high school just because I was so deeply depressed. And once I got to college, I tried to focus on being more positive, and I can notice that's people tell me how positive I am, and how upbeat I am, which is something I never thought people would have said. And you can tell just how much it changes your mentality. Like, I've always thought hate ages you, like you see the politicians that have been at it for years, they're so angry, they look so much older than they are. And I think it really does damage to your body, just not being a kind person.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It goes back to kind of what we touched on earlier, just being, conscious and aware of your thought process. When you get out of bed in the morning, what are you going to choose to, to focus your energy on? Are you going to be mad about the guy that cut you off in traffic yesterday? Are we still talking about that? Or are we going to talk about a good experience today? It really comes back to where you want to put that energy. And, sounds cliche. I have plenty of days where I come into the studio and I'm pissed off and I take it out on Arthur. We're going to have those days, we got to be real, right? That's okay. But it's how quick we adapt and overcome from that. Right. So we get it out. Like you said, you come home and vent, whatever you got to do, but let's get back on track here. And so I think that's going to be the mission for the week. Everybody out there, just, if you're yourself getting fired up, it's the holiday season, you're out there doing some shopping or something didn't go right, take 10 seconds and think about it. Take a couple deep breaths and analyze, is this really worth me yelling at this person over? That's something that's always helped me. Is this worth me getting upset over?
It's true. Yeah. All you people that are overly upset about trivial ass bullshit, start thinking about your thoughts more, and that's the thing though, is like some of these people are just like, so like we were talking, you can't teach an old dog new tricks and yada, yada. Like, I would like to stay optimistic for them, but it's just when belief systems are different, then, if your belief is that life is hard and that nothing comes easy and that you always get shafted, then guess what? Life is hard and never comes easy and you always get shafted because that's your belief system. And it's like, that's one of the things in the motivational stuff they say all the time. Like, from the person who believes they can and the person who believes they can't, both of them are right, and so, yeah, let's be good to each other. Let's care about people. Let's care about ourselves enough to, make ourselves uncomfortable and change things. Let's break our complacency, because I've been complacent in a lot of areas in my life, and I drink too much right now. That's definitely one area where I'm complacent, and I know that that's a problem, and I'm not really handling that, so at least, let's try to put it out there. So at least we're aware of things, and, you don't have to quit, like on the alcohol thing. I don't have to quit, what's that, cold turkey tomorrow.
No,
But, maybe I just start weaning it down, maybe just start weaning it down.
Just being aware.
Yeah, I'm feeling that good energy right now. Thanks for bringing that on.
Yeah, this been a really great cast. Really great cast, man. You're so easy to talk to. A lot of fun to have on the show.
Thank you.
Before we jump off here, we'll talk a little bit more off air. But before we head off, what do you need to tell the people? Where do they go? How are you trying to get in touch with them? Anything you want to promote? This is the time.
So I've got just 2 social medias. On my Twitter, I'm at Work Sneakers, one word. And then on Instagram, I'm at Scooby_Doolittle. I'm trying to get that on Twitter right now as my username, but someone 10 years ago stole Scooby Doolittle and they haven't posted in 10 years. So I'm trying to get it back from them. I don't know where they are.
Have you
but I
sent
want
them
my name
messages?
back. I can't send them a message. I don't know how to get in contact with them, but I need that brand consistency, darn it. And but yeah, those are my 2 things that I have. And then from there, you can find like my screenwriting website and my demo reel and that kind of thing. If anyone wants to give me a job, those are out
for
there.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good
We
stuff to
got
have.
some good listeners.
We'll put that in the show notes down
It's
below.
going down there.
All the YouTube viewers
Yeah.
know, just scroll down. We'll go ahead and get you hooked up with Amanda there. See all her great work out there. And Yeah, this has been a good one. Almost 2 hours in.
Are we almost that far
Yeah,
in?
this one flew by.
Yeah.
Are you
Been
kidding
a
me? I
while.
had no idea. Well, yeah, if that's the case, Amanda, great talking with you. Listeners, we're coming back again next week. You know, we're going to keep bringing the content, and we love you. Love yourself. Love others. Let's really work hard on building that foundation. you know?
Absolutely. Every day, conscious effort. Just being aware of your thoughts, be aware where you're at. We love everyone in the DCPC universe. So fortunate to be able to come here every week and do this and sit down with great people like Amanda. And once again, thanks for being here with us tonight, Amanda. Great stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so fun. It just flew by. I looked at the clock, I was like, oh my God, 7. What happened? But yeah, and it's later for you guys because you're an hour ahead. My goodness.
Good times,
Yeah.
good times. Time flies when you're having fun, and we're going to have some more fun. We got Spirit Forest joining us next week. You guys have seen her on YouTube. She's back in studio. Going to have a lot of fun doing that. But until then, y'all know, be good to yourselves.
You deserve it.